the table of verse. We come sharing gifts. Poesy is this on the table of verse. On the table of verse.
And I'm Peter STEIN. If I have the suspicion some of you may know me from the Minneapolis poetry scene, but I'm going to be doing a reading tonight, and I got a couple of books here. First of all, Belly Up, my most recent chapbook here. My brother Dave STEIN. And you know, Belly Up, as the name implies, it's bar poems and poems that relate to drinking, sometimes in a merriment way and sometimes in a less joyous way, but I'll get to reading some of those. And I also have an older self-published book, Autobio, and I'll be getting to that in a little bit as well too. And I'll just start with some belly up poems, I think, and a little bit of background about myself. I was a philosophy major, and that kind of comes through in some of the poetry I will be reading tonight. But I'm a stay-at-home dad, so I watch my little ones and write. And I'm also involved with the League of Minnesota Poets and working on a business called Poem by Post, but I'll talk a little bit about those a little bit later too. But right now I think I'll start diving into Belly Up, Belly Flop, if you will. All right, well, the first one I'm going to read is, in fact, the title track to my book, Belly Up, called Belly Up, being the title track. Belly Up. Going belly up is harsh on the tongue, hard to stomach, feeds the heart, opens the body to the sky to stare at the attic that harbors the dead memories. The basement stores all the times the bottom dropped out, boxed and taped, cobwebs coating those catacombs avoided by the mind. I am in the kitchen, drinking black coffee to wake, while others have sentiment for sweetener and cream to dull the earthly tones. This darkly delicious house is a bite of fine chocolate, treats the well-rounded palate with an awe of complexity. I don't deny life with sugar or mask it with milk, which does not mean I am bitter. I don't mix my whiskey, which isn't any better way to enjoy a drink. Doesn't mean I'm stronger or tougher than those who don't. I simply savor the flavor of the way it is. So in that one, it kind of sets up the tone of just, you know, enjoying life as it comes at you, whether it be the good times or the bad times, and it's all the same ball of wax, really, and that's where we keep going with it. And I'm gonna start on a down note, but I'll pick things up mood-wise as we go on. Maybe explore the basement before we get back up into the attic. And okay, here's a question. Growth moments in my writing. What did I learn? And I'll be answering questions if you want to type questions in as we go. Let's see, growth moments in your writing. What did you learn? I think one of the things that I've learned most is just to trust my own instinct of where I'm going with my voice. You know, a lot of times the tendency is to, oh, well, I'm really into this poet, right? Like that poet. And, you know, you spend time writing like Blake or, you know, a contemporary poet like Dean Young. You're like, oh, yeah, I like that poetry and I really want to write like that. And so you write like that for a while, but you find out it's not exactly you, but you find out a little bit about your self in doing that process. So I think that process is important in exploring your own voice, in finding who you are as a poet. So thank you for that question, U014902. But I will get to another poem here now, which is based on a real experience. It's called Pumpkins at Midnight, and this poem I wrote New Year's Eve in 2008, which just stuff going on in the world and in my house as well too. So you'll see that in the poem. It's called Pumpkins at Midnight, 12/31/08. Spirits lifted to the lips, wash down the night. The wild world lights a bonfire to dance around as the sky is dazzled with fireworks Gaza side. All eyes go wide with anticipation of what will happen next as each click approaches midnight. Within these walls, calm as the cold outside quiets the night, even amidst the celebration and chaos. A Disney movie plays on the in-home screen as the family, bunkered under blankets, cuddle comfortably on the couch, falls fast asleep before the Western world drops the ball. So not exactly a positive outlook for what was going on in the world at the time. But that sense of security that we feel in our own personal experience or even just personal moments, but there's still so much going on in the world that's not quite making progress. But this next poem goes on to address the issue of time in a more metaphysical way, but also the issue of dropping the ball. And the title of this poem is called "The Doomsday Clock is Constantly Under Revision, as no one really knows what time it is." Bit of a lengthy title there, but here's the poem. 12:01. I'm still here with beer in hand, getting heavy. I expected the unexpected, but what happened was so obvious I did not see it coming. Silence and the second hand. Each click the destruction of a world I will never see again. I watch, constantly witnessing the end. I drift into an epic dream that dies in a moment. I wake up as the beer bottle slips from my grip, spilling its contents onto the floor to the same news, different names, different places, different dates, to the clock still mocking me with its incessant clicks. I sit, think of a reason to move. There is none, but stand nevertheless, walk to the fridge, grab another beer, return to my chair, turn off the TV, sit and stare at the clock and wonder what could possibly come after this. 12:03, perhaps. And the doomsday clock, a reference to us trying to predict, oh, we're this close to the end of the world, and sometimes it goes forwards and backwards, and we just never really know. So I'll read a couple of more here from Belly Up. Let's see. And this next one is also based on a true story in a bar. It's Belly Up. It's a little bit on the lighter side though, which is reflected in the title, which is called "I Lost the Meat Raffle Again." So not taking myself too seriously in this, I lost the meat raffle again. The mystery belittles me, but I laugh at my bad luck, which I can walk out on at any time. But I like the company here. I came alone, though found a friend in the lady that comes around frequently to say better luck next time. Another woman brings me beer, but is far less interested in my woes. Honestly, I'm not that interested either. The other patrons ignore me completely. The mother with 3 kids, husband included, and a well-dressed and a well-deserved glass of wine. The table of elderly courtesans that get the worm and push their luck at pull tabs with nothing to lose and nothing to win. The middle-aged married couple that debates with the online with the middle-aged married couple that debates with the waitress over the full implications of the online printout gift certificate. The self-proclaimed frat boys catching an early drink before the late-night raucous of a live, shitty rock band. Sure, I could walk out on this dim camaraderie at any time, but why would I leave such splendid misfortune, such an immaculate wheel, for the cold and snowy road outside? Yeah, so in winter I just stopped into this local bar and they're having a meat raffle, and that's what inspired the poem. And then this next one was a came up with on a walk home from a bar late night, as the poem implies. And this one is called Night Talkers. The voices of ghosts wander in the moonlight. They whisper in my ears inaudible secrets that are meaningless in scientific terms. No amount of poem can shut them up, but a stiff drink can drown them out on a long walk towards a home light years away. Somewhere I am a star, in someone else's telescope. When I fall, I hope they wish me back into the sky, where I will hum in their heads useless tunes. So that's that's a little more of a recent poem from my chapbook Belly Up. And I do want to mention that at the end of the reading, I will be sort of raffling, going off of the meat raffle theme, off my chapbook and book. If you would like a copy, make sure to stay tuned till the end, and I'll do a little random drawing of sorts if you would like a copy. So stick around, and I will read a couple more from my chapbook Belly Up here too. Any questions at the moment? Let's see. Do you think poets should charge more? What is a reasonable fee per poem? I'm thinking $10,000 per, but be priced to move. Considering all the work that goes into a poem, you know, $10,000 of the time you spent writing it, all the ones you have to scrap to begin with to even get to the point. You know, if you come up with 5 good poems each year, get paid $10,000, you know, $50,000 a year for a poet, I think that's pretty reasonable. Now I just, you know, if people, if you know anyone that's willing to pay that much for a poem, actually I was at a bar last night that had art on the wall, and you know, $2,000 for a work of art, and you know, this is a work of art, I would say. Certainly I didn't have to pay as much in terms of production material, but you know, if you want to buy this for $2,000, I'm not gonna say no. But if you want a little cheaper, I can hook you up with a a discount price. So I'll read just a couple more poems from this book, and then I'll talk a little bit more about my poetry and myself, I suppose, after a drink. Cheers. All right. And this next one, what do you know? It's about drinking. This poem is called Psychosamadhi, and it's kind of a play on the Buddhist notion of samadhi, which is like a brief flash of enlightenment that you feel, but then it kind of goes away. And then the psychosamadhi, like, you know, psychosomatic, it's all in your head. I mean, enlightenment, or that notion, whatever you want to call it, pretty much is just in your head, like a lot of everything else. So I'll read this one, and then there's a couple more questions I will address. Psychosamadhi. Regret pours me a drink as we sit on a log and listen to the leaves leave. The sentinel trees weep. The sun sets with our sorrows as we look the other way, sip whiskey, and wait for light to rise from another horizon. Doubt decides to join us. We welcome all its questions by smothering it with open arms and a stiff drink. Am I such a foolish child for returning to the stump day after day, life after life, to accompany my shortcomings? They need me, and I've grown fond of them. With a sense of frivolity and futility, we watch the river bleed, toss back a few more rounds to toast the innumerable good times littered with the occasional ghost, and leave it to a greater cause to wonder why we're here, while it's likely we're only a figment of some grand imagination. We'll never starve for companionship and are eternally thirsty, so we drink with mouths agape, waiting in amazement for the light to find us. And as you may see, I deal with a lot of Buddhist philosophy and the whole notion of rebirth, death, and life, and both being the same. And my writing, part of my writing, I think, is just to get a handle on those sort of concepts, and that's why I write about. In terms of why I write, that is kind of why, just to process my own thoughts and emotions, and I hope by putting them out there, it's a bit of a communication, and other people find interested in the ideas that I'm thinking about and writing about, and connecting with other people on the same notions. How long have I been writing? Well, let's see, I'm 34 now, I believe. And I've been writing since high school. I think I mentioned my degrees in philosophy, but I did take some writing courses along the way, and I think that poetry is a lot about observation and just being aware of the world around you and taking notice of things and people, and connecting with what's going on an emotional level. And I think that ties in with philosophy, and I think all poets are in their own mind searching for something, or searching for answers or questions, or both, and are all philosophers. And a lot of the philosophers, Aristotle talked about poetics. Heidegger, who is one of the pioneers of existentialism, had a book called Poetry and Language and Thought, which he opens it with his own poetry. So a lot of the philosophers held poetry in high esteem, and felt it was a great endeavor. So, and I agree. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. Favorite poets? Well, one of course. I mean, it's hard to argue with Walt Whitman, right? One of the great transcendentalists. philosophers and poets, I suppose. And, you know, and by association, William Blake, you know, Charles Bukowski, kind of a dark horse. Let's see. In terms of contemporary poets, some of contemporary poets I've been reading lately are Said Jones, which is amazing. Prelude to Bruise is a great, I think that's a Coffee House publication. And I just recently finished Blood Dazzler by Patricia Smith, which is about Hurricane Katrina, and it's an amazing, amazing book. Another endeavor, part of my background, is I'm a member of the League of Minnesota Poets, and we do conventions and contests, and I'm actually the contest convention chair. Let's see if I can type this in here. So if you want to enter your poetry in a contest, a little plug here. Yeah, there. Oh, see, do that to all. Okay, there we go. So if you're interested in that, I'm also working on an endeavor called Poem by Post, which is basically curating poetry to postcards. It's not my own poetry, but it's contemporary poets that have had books out recently. And then if you subscribe, you get a different poem on a work of art each month by a different poet. So it's kind of a good way trying to get people to bring poetry into the home and expose people to a variety of poets. So that's poembypost.com. And then my personal website, I haven't been updating my blog, unfortunately, in terms of poetry, but pwilliamstein.com in case you want to look me up and check out some of the others. I have some deeper cuts on my blog if you would like. So I will read, speaking of Walt Whitman and inspiration, going off that, I'll read one more from my Belly Up book. And that one is called Wit Men and Wit Women, which is really trying to channel that sort of spirit that Walt Whitman has. Wit men and wit women. Hold on a second. Take a little drink. It's a longer poem. Okay, wit men and wit women. Stark raving mad, I wander around my living room. I wander around the space in my brain where complacency is afraid to go, but compassion always hangs out. Whiskey in one hand, jazz in the other, as I spew words whose meaning tastes sweeter on the way back up. The walls, foundations shaken, are appalled, but acoustics resoundingly reply yes. My bare feet pace, making love to the wood floor and carpet alternately, simultaneously. My wild eyes adorned with nothing more than the ordinary. Ordinary dust covering ordinary books shelved among ordinary constellations that guide wanderers through dark times. My lotus eyelids open wide, invite in the bees to mingle with my cornea. Fly home and dance. Soon my colors cover the countryside. My lips, forgive them. They do not know what they say, but they say it, unafraid, unashamed, thrashing at the silence that has persisted too long. No, not the deep meditative silence that summons divine intuition. Ah, what noise that makes. The static interference silence of the TV that falls on sleeping ears and slips into our dreams as advertisement. Whitman's wild children understand completely and wander out into full moon madness, while others hide with the wolves. let out mournful howls, and seek safety, blending with the pack. Though truth be told, they too are wit men and wit women. All safety has to offer is locks, chains, dead-bolted doors, while neighbors are ignored. The vast world is out there, violent as it may be. My hair, the part of me that has lived and died, it still clings to my skin, grows in long strands out the open door, take root and soak in rain from orgasmic cloudbursts that impregnate the earth with any kind of life it can generate, all of which would call their father Walt if they had mouths. So as their brother, even though I do not know what they say, I speak for them. That's Belly Up, and if you wanna, there's information on my website if you go on there with my email if you're interested. These are going for $5. Not 10,000 if you want to pay 10,000, but I'll settle for 5. That's let's see, another question here. As a father of 4, do any of your children share your passion? Also, did they understand where your inspiration comes from? For example, I marvel at the bar inspiration pieces. Well, they probably don't connect to the drinking part of it, obviously. But again, going with inspiration in terms of poets, I mean, Rumi, another fascinating poet that just inspiring work, and wrote about drinking even though it wasn't about drinking at all. And part of the inspiration of drinking comes from that, but also some of it comes from actual drinking and intoxication as well. So it's metaphorical and literal a bit. And in terms of my children, they you can see, especially the younger ones, my youngest are 4 and 3, and they just have philosophical minds and inquiring minds, and exploring metaphor and words, and have so much fun doing that stuff. So I think in terms of inspiration, kids are already there, and we have to try and hold on to it as we get older. We've already had it. It's just a matter of whether or not we lose it, or how much of it we lose, and if we reconnect with it. And I guess poetry is my way of doing that. My oldest is big into music. He's not as much into poetry, but music is into his passion. He's can recite more song lyrics than I can of songs that I know. So let's see. What would I tell someone that wants to be a writer or a poet? I would say just go for it. Just write and just read. Reading especially. I've been reading a lot this last decade, and I think that's really improved my writing and understanding what poetry is about, and what I connect with. And just like music, different genres. Some people are going to connect with some poets, some people aren't. That's cool. If you don't like a poem of mine, that's all right. I won't be offended. Just kind of putting yourself out there and feeling other people's passions is what you should do as a poet, I guess. Okay. Books. 2 books I have are Autobio, which is self-published in 2010, and Belly Up, which was another question. That was just this spring I did that chapbook. I'm working on a full-length manuscript, another one, a full-length called Pure Land Blues, and I might get to a few of those as well too. So right now I'm working with a mentor to kind of workshop those poems and really go into depth and play around with the strengths of the poems and the manuscripts. So that's working on that's my next step, getting the next book out. But I'll go back in time a little bit to auto-bio. Let's see, which ones do I want to... there's a couple here. This is broken into 4 sections. Metropolis, Auto, Bio, and 100 Ways to Die. So, so Metropolis section explores cities in the poems. Auto explores the self. And I like to read from that. I haven't read from these for a while. And that, again, it kind of plays into the Buddhist philosophy of the notion of self and just trying to understand what the self even is. And I think I try and explore that in my poetry. So I'm going to read one here from this book. Otto is the first one. It's called Self-Portrayal. So it's kind of a self-portrait, but it's broken into 8 sections, and each section is kind of a different character or version of myself that's part of me, but not necessarily exactly who I am. You know, no definitive answer to the question of who I am, because that's always a process, really. So this is called Self-Portrayal. Maybe you can see on the page, each section too is sort of, the format is spread about differently depending on the section. So I played around with that in my poetry. Okay, maybe you can't see it all that well, but hopefully it's reflected in the words as well. So the first, section 1, self-portrayal. Section 1 is warrior. On snowy training ground with stick in hand and mind singularly focused on the metal point, all the while the eyes canvas open landscape for motion and hostility and act accordingly. Arm motions to intuitive geometric perfection, guiding, gliding with precision and power, calm countenance as he resigns to fate and servitude. So that was warrior. Section 2, magician. Grandiose deceiver steals in a flash, receives applause. Audience can't keep track, actively ignoring as they want to believe. He plays right into their hand, passes an heirloom into another plane, maintaining blank stare as not to reveal the wool pulled over eyes. They watch his palms open, surprised the prized possession has returned safe and sound. Night after night distracts and misdirects, so the sheepish people do not see the wool pulled over theirs. 3, vagabond. Bare feet firm on the land with no sense of destination and always moves forward. Horizon after horizon and any place he lays to rest he refers to as home. In his satchel there is nothing he would call his own. Never lonely, always alone. Eyes meet the eyes of others and quickly recognizes who are willing to return the favor, smile, handshake, kind word, bite to eat, never asks, never accepts more than offered, experiencing world without walls, acknowledged only by those who want to see more than a body. Section 3, monk. Arms folded inward, legs folded inward, eyes closed, staring into mirror reflecting, metaphysical self, mimicking statue, no thought, no intention, no reaction, only simple, inescapable interaction. with the cosmos. Section 4, schoolboy. Nervous system, not yet acclimated to the expanding playing field, feeling awkward and swerving as if learning to walk again, conflicting biochemical interference, manifested as stammering words and indecisive decisions, vocal projection, comes out in wavering tone. When will I be done? When will I grow into myself? Visions of the mind's eye still mapping, still exploring, experimenting, toying with the idea of identity. Section 5, rebel. Radical ideas stream from conscious thought, conscience cleared of misdeeds, eyes ablaze with social reform, whisper into the earpiece of shouting crowds. We refuse, as tears are released to repress emerging mind. He ducks for cover into the subconscious underground to review blueprints for ways to rebuild the structure so it may stand balanced and sturdy, to mimic a statuette of a blindfolded feminine form. 6. Lunatic. Sunshine, little lines, diffracting, window pane, cracked, rainbow, landscape, hillside vertebrae snaking away, granite golems napping, raging rain, prism droplets, more rainbows, white light spread thin, bounce, bounce, back towards full moon in full. Chameleon skin treads, wearing down on pavement, going nowhere, the ocean, sooner or later, the ocean. The last section is called Undertaker. A calloused grip around deliberately shapen oak, dirt soiling well-worn hands and muscular boots, metal head, strike after strike, buried into bearer of fruit, makes way for the departure. Eyes ashamed of the sky, look away and keep in constant connection with the forgiving earth. So that self-portrayal there, are sort of reflecting aspects of myself that, that sometimes I can identify with a lunatic or that awkward schoolboy, or, sometimes find those moments of peace like a monk, and just the way that, or self-portrayal is, or self-portrait is very rarely two-dimensional, and more complex than just face value. So that poem is very much exploring that. And then let's do, is there another question? Let's see. What should happen in the listener when they hear a good poem? That's a very good question. Well, I mean, first it's so up to the listener to decide if it's a very good poem or not, right? And sometimes you can hear a good poem, but if it's not read very well, sometimes it comes across as flat. So I hope I'm doing a good job reading to come across in that. But just connecting on an emotional level with the readers, whether it's on the page or if it's in a person reading or online reading. I mean, that's the strength of a poem, I think, is if it moves the reader and the listener and connect, and they can relate with what's going on with the reader or the writer in the poem. Let's see, another question here. How long does it take for you to write a book? That is a very good question. I mean, since this was a self-published endeavor, and this Chapbook was, kind of a smaller book. I'm still not really sure. It depends on the book. I mean, this one, I'm working on Pure Land Blues, and that's been at least 3 years in the process, and it's probably going to be a few more, I'm sure. The Belly Up chapbook was a little, it's just a chapbook, and it's like, oh, I got these bar poems, I can kind of throw them together. So this didn't take me all that long, but I mean, it's just a process, and however much work you put into it, and with poetry, whenever you decide you think you have a finalized product, that's when it's done, I guess. So, all right. So before I move on, I think I'll read one more from Autobio, and then I'll do my book giveaway thingy. And this one is one I haven't read in a long time. If it's in here, I just have to find it. But it's been a long time since I read this one. I mean, this came out, and I've sort of shelved this and moved on to other projects. But it's kind of fun to get back and read old stuff, especially if you like it. So, and this kind of goes back to that Whitman type feel, and connecting with a variety of personas. Certainly Walt Whitman did that in terms of looking at people and writing about them as if he were them, and vice versa. So this is part of my attempt to do so as well. And it's called To All. To all the young lovers that do not know the potential that lies within their skin, may their eyes stay ablaze as they emerge and not be denied of their idealistic minds. The glass does not have to break unless the resident no longer wants a home. Sense of wanderlust acquired, and follows the sun across the horizon to see where it retires in the night. To all the sacred hearts that feel beyond the skin and pump the veins of blood that flow like rivers in and out of steel and concrete, saturating the cracks of innate matter, transforming structures into hearth of celebration. Crackling laughter echoes through the chimney, heats more than flesh and bone. To all the barmaids that raise a smile higher than the glass and wash away everything but the company they keep, creating a fallout of merriment, all succumb to the loosening of the compassionate tongue, each story a cat licking an old wound. To all the players on the street corners that beat the bongos and blow through reeds without woe, tiny hairs on inner ear begin to dance, sending message to legs and hips to follow suit. Appreciative fingers reach into pocket depths to pull out spare change, clang in the bucket bottom, adding to the rhythm and subtracting the blues. To all the self-proclaimed scholars with their eyes peering into the empty space between well-defined lines, deciphering the deliberate minds of compatriots, using ancient text messages to tie together pieces of unsolvable mystery, bound by curiosity to find nothing but wealth of knowledge, and no reward but an expanding sphere of waves atop a sturdy pair of shoulders. To all the pill poppers that refuse to see the surface and retreat into the reflection beneath the sea to find Atlantis and tell the tale, but constantly emerge from the waters empty and contagious, waiting with the patience of a monk to finally be extinguished by anarchy, receiving aesthetic sense through 2-bit hits, relying on quick fix to stop the bleeding heart and hide the frail from tempest. I fall in love with you all as the moon continuously falls from the sky in distant admiration, always following along, seeing each of the many faces, reaches out with gentle light, touches the cheek as it sleeps, to transmit beauty dreams as I turn toward the sun. I fall with no regret or concern for the exposed corpse. It will not be bruised by egos or malevolence. Touch me how you choose. It will not hurt, for I find solace in the angry eyes. They will soften with a smile. Sliced up, served any which way, I am honored to be your guest. I am honored to be a dinner guest, chewed and consumed and filtered into the bloodstream to become the thick skin that protects you. Yeah, so that's from Autobio, and I guess Table of Verse fits in with that theme, a bit of a toast there. Gonna get a drink of water after that long poem. So cheers. Again. Let's see here. Okay. A couple more questions here. Do you believe that poetry is resulting of seeing by heart and is expression? Philosophy is a result of thinking by mind and is inquiry. That's a very good, very interesting questions with the feeling and the thinking. You know, I think we can, being a philosophy major, studying through and reading what people thought, sometimes you did feel there was a little disconnect, or it was a little, you know, dry. And I think poetry, and I think that's why philosophers have an admiration for poets and poetry, is because it connects on an emotional level rather than just the intellectual level. And I think the emotional level is a deeper connection because people are emotional beings. We pretend to be rational much of the time, but a lot of the time our rationalization is just to justify what we're feeling. So, you know, I think that connection is, that emotional expression is very important, which is probably why I've delved more into poetry than philosophy in the last decade or so. Let's see. How does your awareness of classical philosophy affect what you write? That is also, I think there's a lot of things that, you know, existentialism and identity and thoughts, those logical thoughts that I'm working on and philosophizing about that trouble me or interest me. I think a lot of people have the same sort of mental inquiry, whether they delve into it, you know, how much they delve into it or explore it, depending on the individual. But poetry is my way of doing so. Let's see, maybe I'll pick out a poem to, here we go. This is a good example. I'll read a couple more poems. These are newer pieces, and this one sort of gets to that philosophy aspect of what we think we know and what we don't know, and just the playing on language. And poetry and philosophy very much depend on language, and this one kind of takes a look at that. This poem is called Voice Control. Wave function rolls over tongue. Say it again. Thoughts like French kiss, ear lick, mind meld, right thought check, right speech check, lights, camera, right action. Communication out of focus. A monkey teaching a dolphin to climb a tree. Both agree that oranges are oranges. Peel means skin. Skin does not mean peel. You can skin a banana, but you can't peel a cat. You can tune a fish, can the piano, it's out of tune. False positives, doubly negated negatives. Placebos work if you let them. Everything is a matter of percentages 90% of the time. From Vegas to Wall Street, but I live in Kansas. Off-Broadway is still Broadway. Paris is still Paris and still burning. I make a claim, then stake it. I have no idea what that expression means. None of the words I invented are in the dictionary. I shout them from rooftops on cold nights. Words are just a song, I don't know the melody. Translate English into English into English, and the original meaning is lost, if it had one to begin with. This corn maze means something, but is too big for me to make it out alive. I need the bees to dance my way out. I recite my lines. Stage directions say to exit left. I do. The curtain closes. No one applauds. So that one kind of touches on exploring language and identity of not so much the self, but of objects and how we relate to objects. Let's see. All right, I was going to raffle off the books. And you'll get both books if you win. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a number 1 through 10. And the first one, or the closest one, you can type in a number into the chat. And the closest one, send me your email. Okay. All right. The answer was 8. So U014902 is the winner. So if you want to privately message me or email, or I can shoot you my email here. And I'll probably see you around U01492002. So you can email me and we'll connect and I'll get you those books. So congratulations. Let's see. I'm gonna do a newer poem too, again, and this one also I think kind of all my poems kind of get to some sort of philosophical thing that I'm exploring in some manner. But this poem is called Western Transmigration, and it's sort of trying to experience an enlightenment or that sense of peace through a Western perspective and the Western culture, which can be difficult sometimes. So it's called Western Transmigration. Take a drink of water first. Western Transmigration. For some reason, all my transcendental breakthroughs involve shattered windows and glass in my forearm. I wake to eggs sizzling on the frying pan, an empty bottle of vodka on the table. My wounds will hurt soon, but I don't mind. Lacerations are only superficial, like everything else, but I should try and stop the bleeding. With all the red garnishing the linoleum, I crave a Bloody Mary. I should grab a mop, but the eggs smell done. And crossing over world after world works up quite the appetite. Whatever epiphany I had last night is still in that other world, a world no different than this one. Only this holy house knows, but it won't say, as it's currently baffled, at how I can eat breakfast contently while its battered, bloody pieces remain scattered in the living room and embedded in my flesh. I can because I am painfully aware there is no bliss in reminiscing, and clearly my house has never eaten eggs over easy on toast while hungover. A home knows what passes through, though has never crossed over worlds. Over isn't the right word, neither is between. There is no such preposition for being two places at once. If there were, it would wake, hung over on a bed of glass, a puddle of blood, and make its way to the kitchen for fried eggs and a mimosa to toast the many worlds it inhabits. All right, so again, that kind of fits in with the belly up to theme, I suppose, with, you know, things going wrong, but, you know, some euphoric sensations blending in with it as well, too, and just the complexity of trying to work both sides out, I suppose. All right. And I think about time to wrap up. I don't know, any other questions that people have, or well, thanks for, let's see, one last one. If you can change one thing about your professional life as a writer, what would it be? I don't know. Well, I'm working on my next manuscript, so I guess that's what I'm changing, is what I have now, trying to change what I have now to get better so I can get my next book out. So I'm not sure if there's anything in the past I necessarily would have done differently, but I'm trying to work on future stuff. So that's what I'm changing, I guess. Why do I keep writing? That's another good one. Again, writing for me, I mean, these mental processes, I kind of feel like I have to work stuff out and get stuff that's rattling around my brain out onto the page, and then it's a little safer once it's outside, and then you can observe it from a distance and see what's going on. I think that's part of what I write. But also, you know, connection with other people, and that's why I read as well too, to connect with other people, and so that hopefully through my writing, other people can connect with me. So yeah, thank you guys. Go to my website, pwilliamstein.com. Yeah, Poem by Post again. That's, you know, I just launched my own poetry business, so go to poembypost.com and check out what that's all about. Yeah, thanks, and thanks, Chris, for putting this on. I think it's great that you connect people through poetry, and it's a great thing. Yeah, round of applause. Yeah, so I think, any last words or thoughts, Chris, or? All right, well, I guess that's it. Have a great night. Thanks for coming up.
Going out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wave and say bye. The table of verse. We come sharing gifts. Post is this.